Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Today, a treat especial, straight from the Big Rock Candy Mountain. A dirt cheap Jeep Cherokee bumper kit for your Jeep Cherokee. Will it shoot? Morning, folks. What can I say? I couldn't resist. Anyway, I got this bumper kit for Jeep Cherokee, found it on Amazon. Don't really remember what the brand is, but I'll find it and put a link in the description. It was $149 shipped. Got here in about 3 days. And on a preliminary look, some of the cuts on the thicker parts on the lugs are a little bit rough, but otherwise it looks all right. The only thing with it, it doesn't come with any instructions, and I've never put one of these kits together before, so we'll see what I can find online to help us out. But that's what we're doing today. Should be pretty cool. Fuck you, Milwaukee. So just from looking at some pictures online of some of these bumpers assembled, this is kind of how I could best figure out it lays out, and I got some of them labeled. A lot of these are just 90-degree bends, but again, just by looking at the pictures and then like over here and here, seeing which surfaces are the same dimension kind of gives you a clue as to where they're going to fit up. You know, that's supposed to be 90 degrees. 90 degrees front. You got those lugs there. Those will fold over, top, front, bottom, all 90 degrees. Kind of have to figure out how this bottom one goes. This is a winch bumper actually, so that's what those slots are for. I don't have one, but something I'd like to do in the future. And then it's just those other pieces that tie into the bumper, or the frame rather, I'm assuming. And that's where we're at now, so we're going to bend some of these up, see if it looks any more like a bumper. Now, you see where I am. I'm in a living room in a suburban apartment, which is, of course, not the ideal place I would like to be in my life, but that's where I'm at for now. And you may call me a hypocrite for, you know, admiring that certain Canadian YouTuber, but despite his constant advice, I have utterly failed to keep my dick in a vise. I really don't have a stable workbench. I don't have a mounted vise. So, that being said, bending these into shape is going to be a little bit interesting. I might end up cutting those tabs that connect them a little bit, just so I can maybe do it on the floor and do it a little bit easier. But it's going to make it for a little bit of an interesting build. But if I could do it here, then, you know, if you have any sort of shop environment, then this shouldn't be a big deal at all. So we're going to start bending them up and seeing if we can get this looking a bit more like a bumper. Yep. I bent up these first couple pieces just off camera, just to try and get an idea of how it's going to go, save you a bit of, you know, first time awkwardness. So they do bend over fairly easily. There's just these little tabs in there that hold it together, and they do bend over fairly easily. I found a piece of wood on here to bend them on, just because the carpet would kind of give it a bit of a weird angle, just being soft and stuff. But if you had a good bench and you were able to clamp it down, I don't see you having any trouble bending these. So I'll go up and bend these couple here and kind of show you how I was doing it. Alright, not so bad. So this is how it should look as far as I can tell so far. And not all the bends are at a perfect 90 right now. I just kind of did it quickly. I'm going to really get those perfect when I start tacking it up because, you know, stuff always moves when you weld it. So we're going to get those squared away when we get there. But still not entirely sure right here if this piece is supposed to be flush with that outside or if it's a corner joint like that. I'm kind of thinking it's supposed to be a little recessed like that. And this will be even with that, and you could just sink the weld down there. And these lugs are going to go in those slots, but we're going to worry about that afterwards. But pretty quick so far. And again, these side things here are going to go underneath there to hold that. I'm not really sure what these are for, if those are for mounting a winch or if those are going to go on the other side of the frame rail in order to bolt it all together. Also, this doesn't come with any hardware that I see, so when we go to fit it up and stuff, I might have to end up getting some bolts, but I will report on that when we cross that bridge. But looking all right so far. All right, I just got done cleaning these up with the grinder, just a little bit around where the welds are going to be, and definitely something you want to do. You definitely want to take that mill scale off, just especially if you're using short circuit MIG, or if it's kind of like a 115 volt machine where it's sort of borderline for this thickness of metal. You definitely want to clean it off. Just give yourself the best chance. It's going to help out, especially because when I'm done welding and I grind this off, I want it to have a nice radius and look nice. And sometimes if you weld over mill scale, that stuff will outgas and kind of give you porosity or cold lap, and then when you go to grind it, it won't look as good. So definitely it sucks, and you know, I didn't show it just because we all know what grinding is, and none of us like it. But I used a hard rock, just one of these grinding discs instead of a flap disc. Like, you know, I used to just go for this right off the bat, but really a hard rock grinding disc like this is going to last a lot longer. You just need to kind of use light pressure and just go along. It'll take that mill scale off, and you'll really save these. These, you do have to have these to like do good work, but these will wear out fast, and these are definitely a lot more expensive than these. So definitely try and get comfortable with these. If you're just taking mill scale off, it definitely helps to have one of these that's already a little bit worn in, because they're brand new. It's a sharp corner on there. You could easily dig out a lot of steel. But I would definitely get comfortable with this. The reason I didn't really clean this up with the flap disc too well is because, again, after I weld it, I'm going to be doing a lot of grinding. So it was just to knock that mill scale off. People say, you know, grinder and paint make me the welder I ain't, but like for real, it kind of doesn't. If you are going to weld something and you're going to finish it and paint it and you want it to look nice, that more than anything is actually going to bring out the defects in your welds. If you have little pits, porosity, or like those wagon tracks, just undercutting stuff, paint is going to really bring it out. And I'm not sure if I'm going to paint this or coat it or what I'm going to do with it, but you want to definitely do your prep, make sure it's good to go, and make sure your welds are good, because you don't want to be, obviously all of us to a certain extent use a grinder to touch up our work, but you really don't want to lay crappy welds and then expect a grinder and paint to hide it, because again, that paint will bring it right out if you have porosity or underfill. Alright, so I'm getting ready to fit some of these up and tack them together, and I just want to mention a few things about the actual welding. This is my MIG welder. It's a Lincoln Electric Powermig 210MP. It's dual voltage, multi-process. It's primarily a MIG welder. That's what I use it for. I got 030 wire and 75-25 gas over there that I'm going to use. And obviously this is a fairly decent machine, and the reason I have it is because, you know, I'm trying to get into welding as a career, as a trade. And I understand that a lot of people, if they're just starting off or just getting into it, they don't have a 230 volt machine, or they don't have gas, and a lot of people, like I did, actually start off with a 115 volt flux core, self-shielded flux core. And just a few things I want to mention about that. First off, just understand it's not ideal, and there are limitations to a 115 volt flux core welder. I'm not saying you can't do this project with it. I used one for years. I did some decent work with it, but there are limitations. My attitude towards it when I started was, well, I'm not going to spend all this money on a good machine and gas and MIG wire if I can't even run a bead, which obviously skill and knowledge are the most important aspect of fabricating and building stuff and welding, but at a certain point, equipment really does begin to be your big limitation, and that's what I found with the 115 volt flux core. I got okay at laying a bead. It's really hard to make self-shielded flux core look good, and on a project like this where you do kind of want it to look good, it's just not ideal. But if that's what you have and you're going to attempt this project, hey, all power to you. That's great. You're out there building stuff, trying to, you know, better your skills and stuff like that. And just a few tips I would give on this. Again, clean the mill scale. Self-shielded flux core even will bite through a lot of stuff, but again, you want to give yourself the best chance to make a good weld, especially if your machine is a little underpowered for the metal you're going to be welding. Again, this is 3/16. I would say that's probably the upper limit of what you're going to do with a 115 volt machine. So definitely clean it, give yourself the best chance, try and dial it in on some scrap. You're probably going to be using some of the hottest settings that machine has. Make sure you got a 20 amp breaker. Use the biggest breaker you can, because it will flick the breaker if you're just using a 15 amp breaker or something. So use the biggest breaker you can, get it as clean as you can, get it as hot as you can. I would even, if it's really an underpowered machine, it wouldn't hurt to maybe run a propane torch over some of these joints before you weld it, just to take some of the moisture out and heat that area up a little bit, because when you start a weld on cold metal, it's going to kind of suck the heat out of that away from your weld, and you're going to get a cold looking weld. So you can kind of mitigate that a little bit. Obviously you don't need to do this if it's a machine with enough power to do it, but if you're just kind of skating by on that line, hit it with a propane torch a little bit and take some of that cold edge off of it, and it should it should go a little ways to help you out and make a better weld. But you're definitely gonna have to feed a lot of wire in there to get a nice radius when you go to grind it off. So if that's the way you're going, I'm not going to use that today, just because you know, I have a good machine with gas, and I am going to use this bumper, so I do want it to look good. But I understand that's what a lot of people start off with, so just try and keep some of those tips in mind, and good luck. Got one of these first wings tacked up right now, and I mentioned 115 is a little bit weak for this metal, but if you get a higher quality machine like that, this is pretty respectable for what it's doing on 115. I'm at about 20 volts, 315 inches a minute, roughly. I mean, I'm just tacking, so I'll probably end up dialing that in a bit, but it's doing great. Good shielding, good hot tacks, and pretty easy to fit this up with a few magnets and some clamps. Definitely gonna want to have those, but I'm gonna do the other one of these, just tack it up. I might end up trying to move down to the basement to weld them out, because the neighbor's dog is totally obnoxious, and I don't really want to get in a fight. I just want to weld and have everybody leave me alone. So might end up doing that. Not sure how many arc shots or actual welding footage I'm gonna get, but I'll update as necessary. Got this all tacked up. Had it out here just to fit it up, and those plates I was talking about, looks like this is where they're gonna go, because when I fit the bumper up, there was kind of a gap, you know, about 3/16 quarter inch. So I'm assuming these are gonna go in there like that. The only thing is I have these quick disconnect sway bar links, and I got this bracket to hang them up there, and it's kind of interfering with that. So I guess I'm gonna have to move that. Shouldn't be too big a deal. Those are just drilled holes, self tap or so. That can move over there, but that's where these are gonna go. I'm definitely gonna need some different bolts, even just for these three here. But that's how that goes. Should work out. I'm out here on the porch, starting to weld these up. Just going in little sections like this, kind of all over, trying to keep the heat down a little bit. And also I flicked a breaker a couple times. I'm sure it's probably not as strong as it could be, but it's all I really got to deal with. So I mean, if you have the option to plug into a 20 amp breaker, definitely do that. But even on 110, this welder here really burns in. It's not a cold weld at all. So besides the breaker thing, it's really working out pretty well. One thing I will mention, I wish I thought of this earlier. Right there, that's where there was a tack there. I tacked it up, and if you can, you really should try and run over these tacks and these little tabs, those bending tabs there. Run over all that. Don't weld up to it like I did here. I kind of started doing it on the other side. Didn't even think of it there, but you want to burn through all that stuff, because you can see right right on the edge there, that's a little bit of a suspect looking area, and right there on the left side, that's where one of those bending tabs were. So I'll probably end up grinding that out a bit, and you want to really burn right in there, especially if you're going to grind this off. You know, that stuff will show up in there if it's cold lap, but otherwise it's doing a pretty great job. So going to be a lot more of the same. Might try for a few arcs. Definitely quite a bit of welding to do on this. I think I'm just going to kind of call it for the day. My neighbor brought me over some grilled chicken that he was doing, so thank you, Donald. That was nice. But it's going okay. I wish I was a little better with my restarts. I kind of have a bad habit of filling up the crater when I know there's going to be a restart. Obviously, you want to fill it at the end, but you know, you can see it kind of has a bit of that cold appearance when you fill the crater up and then try and start. So you really want to just kind of terminate it quickly. You know, I've kind of struggled with that even in school a bit, but definitely a lot of room for some good practice on a project like this. If you're just starting out, I'd say this is definitely a good project to get you going. You definitely try a lot of different stuff, which techniques work for you, and definitely get a lot of time in there. You're going to grind it flush, radius it off, so not a huge deal if they don't look great, but these are going pretty well. I'm happy with how the machine's doing. Just me that's holding it back. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there for this video. It's already getting a little long, and there's quite a bit more welding and grinding to do, but I plan on making a second video. I'll show it finished out, do a bit more welding, some grinding, and then I'll weld those lugs in with some stick, and then talk a little bit about how the fit up goes and stuff like that on the actual vehicle. But it's going pretty well so far. Definitely could have taken a little more time on the fit up, but again, that's kind of one of my flaws as a welder. I just get excited with a new project and kind of rush into it. But it's going well. The machine ran great. I did blow the breaker a few times though, which is kind of annoying, but that's all I can really muster. But it does have quite a bit of juice just for being on 110, which I'm pretty happy with. But definitely got a newfound respect for the guys who make fabrication videos of whole builds and stuff. I tried to get a couple arc shots, but just wasn't working. It was kind of tough getting all the angles and stuff, trying to figure everything out. So definitely a new respect to people who put out good content as far as build videos and stuff. Hats off. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you got something out of it, and see you for the next one. Y'all take care.